Let's take a look at how Jalen Hurts avoided a serious injury in his unbelievable performance against the Rams on Sunday, Howie Roseman, how he could prepare for a move at the trade deadline and who he's targeting, and Quez Watkins, Nick Sirianni, comes to his defense despite Eagle fans wanting him out of here. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Can I just get something off my chest? How did Jalen Hurts avoid blowing out every ligament in his knee during this play? Seriously, are you watching this play? How is his leg not completely disintegrated? How is his ACL, MCL, PCL, whatever CL still intact? It makes no sense other than the fact that he is superhuman. He's incredible. Thumbs up for the fact that Hurts is still okay and played the rest of this game and balled out like we talked about. There's a little bit of me wanting to see Jalen Hurts talk and just verbally confirm that he's okay from this because it just looks so horrific. But if you tear your ACL or any of the ACLs or the LCLs or whatever you call them down in the knee, he wouldn't have finished the game. The throws he made, by the way, when you go back and watch the film, I know I recapped this on my show yesterday if you missed it. Look at this one to Dallas Goedert. I mean, this is not something Jalen Hurts could do 2 years ago. It was not physically possible for Jalen Hurts to do this 2 years ago, and yet there are so many throws in this game that are on target, that are perfectly placed to protect his receivers, keep it away from the defenders. He did have 2 bad throws this game. We talked about him yesterday, but overall, what a performance by Jalen Hurts. Thumbs up for number 1, being QB1 for a 5-0 Philadelphia Eagle team. Now, the NFL trade deadline is technically approaching. It's going to happen right before Halloween. We have a couple more weeks until that happens, and people are wondering who Philadelphia could look at. Is Philadelphia looking at people and how they could make room on the roster? And while there is no technical report or news today saying the Eagles are going to trade for this person, despite headlines you're going to see on YouTube, I'm looking at you guys. Remember, don't really believe everything you see on YouTube. Here's how they could go about making a move for a couple of players that technically should be available based on reports we've heard earlier today. Now, Outside DA Birds does a great job breaking it down. Let's follow his example here, his blueprint, where they say, quote, here's my guess as to what happens. Obviously, future injuries can impact things, make moves easier as well. Nakobe Dean will be activated. He will fill Cam Jurgens' spot on the active roster. Dean is eligible to be activated at the end of starting this week, and Cam Jurgens goes to IR. He's out for the next 3 weeks now because he missed this past Sunday. That, of course, fills the one roster spot left available by Cam Jurgens. Mario Goodrich and Rashad Penny are eventually cut when Bradley Roby and Braden Mann are out of elevations. Braden Mann, he has 1 more elevation this week. Roby has 2 more. And by the way, let's at least mention Bradley Roby, talked about it yesterday. He was really good. The best nickel cornerback Philadelphia had on the entire field. He's here for the long run, but they're probably going to use his 2 more practice squad elevations and then sign him to the active roster because there's no real need to sign him just yet because you already signed him to the practice squad and can elevate him. Then Albert O or Grant Calcaterra is released when Jurgens is eligible to return from IR prior to week 9. And then he mentions there's a chance the Eagles could free up a roster spot for Jurgens or possibly another player they trade for by getting rid of either Derek Barnett or Quez Watkins at the trade deadline, which of course taking place on Halloween, which is right before week 9 when Philadelphia has their bye week. Now we'll talk more about Quez Watkins, what Nick Sirianni had to say about him based on his kind of unimpressive performance this past week a little bit later on. But Derek Barnett, he can be a trade candidate. Why not? He hasn't done much so far this season. They already have Nolan Smith, who I think they should give more snaps to because he's barely played. Did you even see him out there on Sunday against the Rams? If you get rid of Barnett, you free up space, you free up money, and you could go ahead and make a move. Now, as you get closer to the trade deadline, there are teams that are going to be sellers, and teams that are going to be sellers are teams that really need draft picks. They obviously are not going to go anywhere, and you can start to kind of deduce who those teams are going to be. First of which, there's this report today from Jeremy Fowler saying the Jets are looking at all options for speedy wide receiver Mecole Hardman, including a trade and quote. Now, he was unhealthy and inactive in week 5. They're not using him at all. Of course, Zach Wilson can't throw very well anyway, and so throwing to him doesn't make a lot of sense. Philadelphia plays the Jets, by the way, this weekend, but Hardman could be one of those trade options for Philadelphia at the trade deadline if you wanted to bring in a true speed person to replace a speed person in Quez Watkins and hope that Mecole Hardman produces a lot more than Quez has. Now, I don't know if the Jets are going to be full on sellers because I guess Aaron Rodgers is trying to come back at the end of the season and he's going to have him for next year, and so you can't just abandon and blow the whole thing up. But if they're already sitting a healthy and active Mecole Hardman, then making a trade for him can make a lot of sense for Howie Roseman. The Eagles also have connections to the Jets with Joe Douglas, who formerly was the president of football operations in Philadelphia, and so you can put the puzzle pieces together and at least kind of convince yourself that that could be a possibility. Now, the real question in terms of a seller team is Denver. There's a brand new report from James Palmer basically saying that the players in the Broncos locker room believe that a potential teardown is coming. They're 1-4. They play the Chiefs on Thursday night, by the way, so 1-5 is basically a guarantee. And Palmer said, quote, the sense that I get from players in the locker room is that a potential teardown is coming. There are thoughts in that locker room that where changes could start happening in terms of this roster before the trade deadline, end Quote. Now, when you think about players that are available for the Denver Broncos, who they might actually trade, another good tweet here showing a couple of several options: Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver, Garrett Bowles, the left tackle, and then, safety Justin Simmons. You can throw in, of course, Cortland Sutton, and pass rusher Frank Clark as well. I know people will say, what about Patrick Surtain? But according to Benjamin Albright, who's a Broncos reporter, he said on Twitter just the other day, Surtain is basically untouchable, one of the few players Denver doesn't want to get rid of. He's on a rookie contract, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and Philly probably wouldn't be able to afford him anyway. But out of that group, Justin Simmons is the name that absolutely reverberates throughout Philadelphia and makes a ton of sense for the Eagles. Now, you could get him for probably a second or a third round draft pick. I don't think he's worth a first round draft pick, and you could make the money work and honestly sign him to a long-term deal. But the question really becomes, is he worth it in terms of the price? Would he make Philadelphia that much better in the secondary? And well, I think Reed Blankenship, his spot is 100% locked in. He's been great. And Justin Evans hasn't been terrible. If you have an opportunity to get Justin Simmons, I would at least kick the bucket on it. And now I'm not saying the Eagles are going to do this. I'm not saying that they 100% will, but this to me would be the one real option that Philadelphia has at the trade deadline. Not name a Buda Baker or a wide receiver that would make some sense and make your defense a lot better than it already is. Now, there is the argument that Philadelphia held the Rams to 0 points in the second half despite Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua existing, and maybe Sean Desai is starting to kind of work his way into form, and Sidney Brown's going to come back and be healthy, and so you don't have to go ahead and make a move. But I see people on Twitter and on my comment section always talking about what move can they make, who are they going to trade for, and there's at least one team in Denver that makes a lot of sense and one player in Justin Evans. And when it comes to Quez Watkins, we all talked about during the offseason, this is going to be the year of Quez Watkins, the revenge tour, if you will, that he was going to prove he was a true number one wide receiver, at least an elite receiver, and yet, so far throughout the season, you see his numbers on your screen, he's been anything but that. And really, yesterday, or I should say Sunday's performance, where, yes, he was open in the back of the end zone, could have had a touchdown, but not getting a lot of targets, not being trustworthy, and this 3rd and 2 play inside the red zone really, to me, was the last straw for a lot of Eagle fans. And my comment section on yesterday's video had about 4,000 comments saying that they wanted Quez Watkins gone from Philadelphia. Nick Sirianni's post-game press conference was asked about Quez Watkins, and he went to his defense saying, quote, "One thing with Quez is something Quez's abilities aren't always shown. What is unknown about Quez, what can't ever show up on a stat sheet with Quez, is his ability to stretch the field. His speed is real," end quote. So he's basically saying that Quez Watkins' speed is the reason why he's on this roster, because even though he's not getting a lot of targets or making an impact in terms of the stat sheet, he's spreading the football field, extending it, and creating opportunities for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. While that makes sense, you would think that if he's able to spread the field that much and he's that much of a speedster, you could at least get him a couple of targets and make sure that he's worth his weight in salt in terms of the number 3 wide receiver. And for all these reasons we talked about yesterday, including the fact that he just doesn't seem like he's that into the Philadelphia Eagles right now, I'm out, and I think trading him makes some sense. You know, you're not going to get a lot in return. 6th round draft pick, 7th round draft pick, maybe a change of 6th round draft picks. Not going to be anything crazy, but you already have Olamide Zaccheaus on this roster. He proved his worth when he filled in for Quez Watkins in Week 3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you have some guys on the practice squad who, in panic situations, you could elevate. Where are you guys at in Quez Watkins? Would you get rid of him? Would you keep him? I'm curious where we're at on this. I think most of us agree that the time has probably come. One thing keeping Quez Watkins here, though, trading him doesn't really save you much money. It just frees up that roster space if the Eagles want to make a deadline move. Now, 2 quick notes on the 2 teams Philadelphia faces the next 2 weeks. First off, the Jets. They officially announced that Elijah Vera-Tucker, their star offensive lineman, is out for the season with a torn Achilles. And so that offensive line that wasn't able to protect Aaron Rodgers early on in the season, they've done a poor job of Zach Wilson, gets even worse. Maybe a big day for Jalen Carter. And Dolphins breakout rookie running back Devin Achane, he is officially out for an extended period of time. He's getting a second opinion in terms of whether or not he needs to go on IR for the next 4 weeks. But that Eagle-Dolphin matchup that myself and Josh Davis are going to be at is just 2 Sundays away. There's no way Achane is out there, and that honestly helps out Philadelphia. We have plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. I expect injury updates for the Eagles. When will they activate the linebacker Nakobe Dean? How will they integrate him back in there? And of course, all the drama that comes with being an Eagles fan. We're at almost 21,000 subs. The growth on this channel is incredible. I appreciate you guys. If you like what you see, give the video a thumbs up, hit that sub button down below, and stay tuned for a lot more. I also appreciate all the well wishes for the surgery that I had. Again, only able to sit for the couple minutes I do this show, and then it's standing or laying down due to the surgery on my rear end, which is not very fun, but I appreciate you guys nonetheless. Hopefully we're going to heal soon and be back and ready to go for a live show tomorrow night, and of course a live on Sunday against the Jets. I'm Thomas Mott. On a Tuesday, this has been the Thomas Mott Show.